Hello everybody, Raven Knight here, and today we are continuing our dive into the heroes of For Honor, analyzing them for the lore, historical inspirations, play style, design, and overall feel. We've been going through the Vanguards first, and I don't see why we should stop now. So today, let's talk about the Vanguard of the Samurai. You know him, you love him, the Kensei.
Every army needs warriors whose specialty is victory. Kensei, sword saints, the guardians of our people. Every great ruler since the fall has trained as a sword saint. Every one. And they are formidable. The Nodachi was long thought to be too large for use in real war. They proved them wrong. Their armor is the strongest of our people. As is their will.
For the samurai, you live and die by the sword. And for a Kensei, this is not just a saying. Literally translated to mean sword saint, the Kensei are noted leaders and champions of the samurai. Now, all samurai are born into the social class, but Kensei are above and beyond the average warrior. They are raised, trained, and disciplined not only in the ways of war, but in the ways of the commander, the ruler, and the scholar. A Kensei isn't just a swordsman. They are a paragon and symbol of what every samurai should aspire to be. They are armed with the finest armor of the samurai, given the massively long and formidable Nodachi sword in battle, and deployed to the most ferocious and most important fights, where their skills will be most crucial. Now, according to the trailer, all leaders of the samurai have at least trained as a Kensei, even if they did not maintain the title, and this goes a long way to emphasize the importance of the class itself. To even be trained as a Kensei is a high honor. But do these mighty sword saints have a historical reference? Well, let's talk history. Now, if you want the full breakdown of Kensei's history, I'd suggest going and watching my full hero and history video on them. But for a very brief summary, Kensei has two primary references historically. First lies in the name itself. The word Kensei has historical and cultural significance. Kensei, or sword saint, is a title bestowed on a swordsman who has shown themselves as the greatest master in Japan. There can only be one sword saint alive at any given time, so obviously the name is the only aspect taken and given to this class in For Honor. The other historical influence is likely the daimyo. The daimyo were samurai families who ruled over specific provinces as feudal lords. The daimyo were respected and feared as leaders, commanders, governors, and vassals to the shogun. Now, during the Sengoku Jidai, or Warring States period, the daimyo engaged in long civil war to determine who would claim the title of shogun, or chief military leader of Japan itself. Some famous examples of daimyo in history include Tokugawa Ieyasu, Oda Nobunaga, Uesugi Kenshin, Date Masamune, and Tachibana Genshio. Though samurai by birth, the daimyo were the highest among their peers. More than warriors, they were the rulers of Japan. And again, for more details, go see the video. Now that we've talked about history and lore, how does their fashion hold up? What's the design like? Let's talk about that too. Now, in terms of their design, Kensei honestly has some really good fashion. Some of the best of the samurai, if you're asking me, honestly. I'm gotta be real about it. Most of the outfits feature a classic Muromachi or Edo period style armor set with noticeably large sode shoulder pauldrons, a kabuto that covers the head, and a minpo mask covering the face. The different styles and designs for the hakama, armor, and even a yoroi haoroi can make for some really neat designs while still being unique enough to tell them apart. Now, I do want to point this out because many people will. They want to ask me, do the samurai in-game have wooden armor? At the very start of the game, yes, they tried to argue that the samurai wore wooden armor. That's dumb. In fact, I would say that's probably one of the dumbest aspects of the design choice for the samurai. It flies in the face of historical fact. The samurai did not wear historically, they did not wear wooden armor. Now, did the Japanese warriors of history wear wooden armor? Long ago before the samurai, yes, they did wear wooden armor. But by the time of the samurai, no, wooden armor was faded out. It was phased out of existence. And now, with more modern and more unique armors of the samurai, we now see all that wooden armor is gone. You only see wooden armor now in the very early armor pieces of the samurai. I don't even know why they thought they would do that. Like, what was Ubisoft thinking when they did that? I get the idea that I remember hearing one of the developers explain that at the time they had limited technology and so they had to use what they had on hand. But even then, you have to recognize wood is not a good armor choice. But that's beside the point. That's beside the point. Now, I wanted to emphasize again that even with that add-on given, I do want to state that the designs of the samurai or the Kensei look absolutely phenomenal. And I currently have made 3 Kensei builds. I have Sadahara Ryoshi, Matsunaga Ryo, and Yamada Kasumi. Now, some of you might be saying, hey, Raven, who's Yamada Kasumi? I want to bring this up because I've mentioned it, and I should have mentioned in my Raider video. I'm sharing all the designs I've made. Not all these designs have legends yet. Eventually, they may have legends, but just because I have a design doesn't mean it always has a legend. I like to make designs, guys. One thing I appreciate about the different designs for the Kensei is that whether you go male or female, you can still get a really decent look, and I found that switching between the genders can give very unique effects. For example, the female always looks a bit more sleek to me, while I think the male design has a more imposing presence. And as a daimyo, I would think that makes a lot of sense. Now, as far as the executions go, if you want to know more about the Kensei executions and how I feel about them, check out my series on executions graded, where I show you guys the Kensei's executions and grade them, but I can at least tell you my favorite and least favorite executions. My favorite executions is triple slash. My favorite execution has to be triple slash. It's such a good execution. Now, I know some people bitch and moan, oh, but the enemy's pulling out random Tonto knives. They wouldn't carry that realistically. I know, and a lot of people get upset about that, but I think the solid flowing movement, the rapid striking technique just looks so solid. It feels absolutely baller each time I watch it. It's one of those executions that when you throw it out, even if you're the one eating it, God, it just fills you up. It's just one of these really badass executions that you just really can't go wrong with. I really do feel like it's that good. But the worst execution, you know what? I'm going to have to give that one to Gravity's Fall. Gravity's Fall is an execution where all the Kensei does is grab the opponent, drop them on the blade of their sword, and then pull the blade out from underneath them. Not only do I feel this isn't especially lethal, but it's honestly really lazy. When I think of a Kensei, I think of a honed, trained, battle-tested warrior. I don't think of this lazy goof who just lays out his sword and goes, fall on that, thank you. Besides, you could have made it a lot cooler by calling it Fall on Your Sword. I feel like the only reason they called it Gravity's Fall is because of Gravity Falls, the TV show, which was really popular at the time it came out, and they just wanted to name drop that. I feel like that's lazy. You could have called it Fall on Your Sword or Fall on My Sword, and that would have been a better name at least, but even with a better name, I mean, as Shakespeare said, what's in a name? Like, you know, this is just, it's a bad one. Yeah, so that's easily the worst execution as far as I'm concerned. So that wraps up executions, design, lore, and history. So I guess all that's left is to talk about how do they play. Now, I'll go ahead and warn you right now, I don't play Kensei nearly as much as some others, so don't be surprised if I miss or even forget certain aspects of their kit. But I do want to say this, of the Vanguards, in fact, of the Heroes of For Honor, I would say that Kensei, most likely, is the most balanced hero of the cast, if not one of the most balanced heroes. I feel like they are an absolutely fun character to play, even though I don't play them as much as others, and I figured I'd share with you guys the basics of Kensei and a few tips of my own, so let's dive into it. Alright guys, it's time to talk about how to play the Kensei. Like I said, I believe that Kensei is, if not one of, the most balanced characters in the game. He's got a very simplistic moveset that means that a lot of new players can pick him up and play him very easily, but his moveset has enough intricacy to it that longtime players can still find fun out of him. Plus, his moveset isn't as basic as, say, Warlords, where it's all seems to be locked down to just 2 or 3 little hints. Kensei has a lot of things that he can work with, and that's why I like using him so much. So, let's talk about his moveset. For starters, Kensei has a 3-hit combo, including the triple light. You can mix in a heavy. You can start with a heavy and throw in lights. Or you can just go 3 heavies all the way. Now, let's talk about that last property, heavy. When you throw a third attack in the combo, whether it's a heavy or a light, it will have hyper armor, meaning that you can train with your opponent. The one exception is if the third heavy is a top heavy. Then it becomes unblockable. Now that unblockable attack does 34 damage, which means that it is a very, very good move to use. That also means that you can bait your opponent, because let's face it, no one wants to be hit with an attack that can do 34 damage. But that also means you can play 50-50s with them. See, Kensei can soft feint out of that top unblockable heavy into either a guard break or a lighter heavy from any other direction, and that lighter heavy will have hyper armor. So to demonstrate, and from that guard break, I can easily get in a heavy with a little less damage. Now, the other one is to do a follow-up light. Or you'll notice that the follow-up attack always has hyper armor, meaning that I can still trade, and if it's a side heavy, that means that even if my opponent tries to dodge or tries to parry my top unblockable, it will still land, which gives a very solid amount of damage, which really, really helps. So, that gives you an idea of kind of what Kensei can come packing with. Now, there's another trick you may not know about Kensei. He can soft feint into a dodge attack. Kensei's dodge attack is really, really good. It also has superior block. Sorry, I was focusing on the move. It also has superior block, which means that if my opponent attacks at the same time I dodge, I can easily push through it and still land my attack. And it has a ton of iframes, meaning that you're basically changing location. Notice where I'm standing now and where I'm standing when I'm done. It's a crazy good iframe dodge. But it is parryable, if my brother will demonstrate. There we go. And like all other dodge attacks, it's treated as a light parry, which means that a heavy can be landed. But if I'm following up like this, sometimes I can really throw off my opponent, which is really freaking awesome. Now, let's say that I'm starting out with a top heavy. I can soft feint into a bash, which guarantees a light. This is a good way to get your opponent open and follow with your top unblockable. Now, there are a few things you may want to know too. You can do a dodge forward into a guard break, which most people won't see coming because they're expecting you to do a dash forward top light, which is incredibly fast. Or a dash forward top heavy, which is also pretty fast and most people, again, won't see coming. Now, another thing that I want to teach you, this is a little tip of the Kensei that many people don't know. If you get a guard break and you're near a wall splat them, because then you can get your top heavy for free, and that's 34 damage. That's how you can get your max damage. Now, Kensei's zone is one of the best in the game. The zone comes out from the left side every time, and it is so quick. Most people don't see it coming, which is why a smart thing to do with a Kensei is just always keep your guard on the left side so that you're always kind of prepared for that attack just in case they try to whiff it. It is really quick and hard to predict. You can cancel it after the first attack by hitting the cancel button, so you can mess with your opponent in that manner. What I like to do is do that and then dash forward into a light. I find that's a very good way to kind of throw them off guard. And once you get that first light in, you can throw in that top unblockable. Isn't that nice? Now, another thing that I want to say about Kensei, and then we'll start to wrap it up, is that I think that Kensei, what really makes him so good is the unpredictability factor. They can do a lot of damage very quickly, but because of their soft feint capability, and yes, I forgot to mention this, you don't have to be going into your top unblockable to do a soft feint. I can do a raw heavy into side light. Or side heavy. I noticed that a lot of people don't try to do this, but it's just like with Hatun, who we'll do in a later video. You can throw a top heavy and soft feint into another direction. Many people don't realize this. You can't do it from any other direction though. So if I try to do a heavy from the left, I can't soft feint it into a top light. It can only work from the top. So with that all in mind, what can I say about Kensei? The trick with Kensei is knowing how to soft feint your opponent, keep them guessing, and take advantage of the 50-50s, opening up with bashes. And here's the best advice I can give. Against pro players, or against players that have been doing this a long time, whiff that unblockable heavy. I know it's tempting to try to soft feint it, but honestly, some people are so expecting that soft feint that they will just automatically just assume that you're gonna either guard break them or shoot from another direction. They have no idea you're about to actually drop this, which does a lot of damage and punishes them for not making the right read. So that is pretty much how you play Kensei. He's a very fun character to play, honestly one of the best in the game. Pick him up if you haven't already. And now let's wrap this all up. And that about wraps everything up. So what can I say about Kensei now? How can we wrap all this up? Kensei to me is the quintessential samurai. Whenever you think of a samurai, the first thing you think of an armored warrior carrying a katana, walking around, showing the Bushido code and bearing the way of the samurai. But when I think of a samurai, I think of something along the lines of Kensei. Not just because of the look or the aesthetic, but because of the personality and the presence. Kensei is not just a warrior. Kensei is a symbol. Kensei is an archetype. Kensei is something that you look at and you say, this right here is a warrior. See, that's the thing. That's what sets a samurai, a knight, and a Viking apart from the average echelon of just brutes with weapons. Any idiot can grab a weapon, pick it up, scream like a banshee, and run around hitting people, but that's not a warrior. Kensei is a warrior, armed in the finest of armor, carrying the finest of weapons, trained to battle and die with honor and diligence and integrity. Even off the battlefield, they are imposing, they are strong, and they are symbols to their people. Have you noticed that so far with all the characters we've looked at, Warden, Raider, and Kensei, all of them are enigmatic symbols to their people. They are things that others rally around and aspire to be. And I think of them, Kensei stands even above Warden and Raider in that regard, because Kensei is a leader. A Raider is a hero, but maybe not a leader. A Warden is a paragon, but again, maybe not a leader. A Kensei is a leader. And that's the kind of, and when you're in a world surrounded by war, like in For Honor, the Sword Saint might be the one you want to follow. Thank you guys so much for following. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know if you enjoyed down in the comment section below. And next time we're going to go to the next Vanguard, Tian D. Stay tuned, guys. Look forward to doing it. Take care.